So here we are again, Serena. Happy whatever day it is today to you. Happy Friday. Oh my God, it's Friday. Amazing. I am so excited about this conversation. I think this is probably the most excited I've ever been about talking about behaviour change. um, be- Not that all of the other conversations we've had are like unworthy, of course, but this to me really tickles my fancy, because I think when we're talking about the dark side of behaviour change, we're kind of going into stuff that a lot of the time we're not able to say, especially if you're in the coaching world or in the therapy world or in the world of like helping people to change. There is a dark side to this, and because I've been burned a few times, I'm super passionate about saying it as it is and educating the consumer in a way. And there are podcasts dedicated to this whole subject. So, Serena, what can go wrong when we're talking about the dark side of behaviour change?
Wow. Well, so when I teach this, so as I've said probably many times, and people listening, if you've listened to a few, you've heard me probably say many times, I teach this, and I often teach this, well, more than anything, I teach it to healthcare practitioners. So I have a foundations course in behaviour change that I teach to doctors, surgeons, physiotherapists, osteopaths. So I help those practitioners integrate psychology and behaviour change into their practice so that they can help their patients and their clients make the changes that they want to. And in that training, as part of the training that I do, what I bring people's attention to is really that the more we understand about how human beings think and feel, and how we might then be able to influence what they do as a result of understanding how someone thinks and feels, that we are in a really privileged position because we are now holding someone and we have the opportunity to help them in a really positive way to make a positive shift in their life. And that's because in the process of change, and if you're helping someone else do it, you are naturally going to be privy to really deeply personal information about someone, which is, as I keep saying, the word privilege comes up for me a lot in that conversation, because it is a deep privilege to be able to work with someone and for them to honour you with their truth and their vulnerabilities and their story. And you do that in this really beautiful ethical exchange where you are able to then, with the knowledge that you have of someone, really help them navigate their own individual blocks and barriers and kind of, if you like, push them towards the change that they say they want to make.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the more I teach people about those insights, the more it becomes really aware, the more you become really aware of the fact that, if I'm just being blunt, and I like the fact that you said blunt, so let's speak about this really, really bluntly.
Yeah.
That you could actually really manipulate that.
Yeah.
That now that you are privy to this information, now that you do know how someone thinks, and not just someone specifically, but there are ways that humans typically behave as well. The more you know about that, the more you get to see how, I could really do something here and do something to my advantage.
Yeah.
And I talk about that, and I literally say, can you see how this could be used in really dark, nefarious ways, how we can be really manipulative. And it's like, yes, I can see how, now that we have this knowledge of how someone changes, of how I can get someone to change if I want them to, I can see how that can be used for good and it can be used for bad. And, I give some really kind of low level examples of how it's used in things like advertising and marketing, which I'm sure we'll get into, which also can be which are manipulative, because we're manipulating the human psyche, because we know what we need to do to nudge them to make a change in our favor, to buy something or to do something. And so I just think it's an integral part of our discussion when we're talking about behavior change, because it's a big part of it.
Yeah, the ethics behind it. And essentially, when I'm doing a consultation with someone for RTT, I am effectively data mining. I'm extracting data from them about their past histories, about what it is they want to change, how their habits and behaviors are no longer serving them. And then what I do with that information is, it's, well, obviously what I do with it is I help them. But I am not naive to the delicacy in those situations. And what I have seen, especially in the online business, is that people will do these polls, kind of people that are parading as business coaches, for example, they will do these polls and they will extract data from you to find out what your weakness is, which is a valid marketing tactic. But then they will use it to try and sell you something. So we're getting very, very, very good at sales in this culture and the online world. But then when you actually go in through the door and you get into the main room, if you like, what many people are finding is all is not as it seemed in the first place. It's that whole magpie effect, isn't it? So you come in through the front, it's all very shiny. It feels good. It feels resonant. It feels aligned. And this is the danger, because these people are speaking your language because they've worked out what your language is. They speak your language and you get a false sense of trust. Oh, this person really gets me. This person really knows me. They're really speaking my language. You go through the door and then you realize you've wasted your money because they actually don't know what they're talking about. Or worse still, you go through their entire program and you come out the other side more confused, not feeling like you need to sign up again because you haven't quite changed enough. I mean, you've watched the Teal Swan documentary, you've watched The Vow. Have you watched The Vow, the Nixium thing? Yeah. Obsessed.
Yeah, and it's all down, as a side note, if anyone is listening to this, if you ever want a recommendation about the next best thing to watch, ask Sally. She gives me the best recommendations, honestly, you do. I know that if you've recommended, if I get these random WhatsApp messages from Sally just going, here we go. I'm like, boom, that's the next thing I'm watching. I know it's going to deliver because you actually are amazing. You should have a different podcast on Sally Says or something. I don't know. Sally's top 10 documentaries this year. Honestly, it's amazing.
Well, it's just that whole reticular activating system, isn't it? When you start looking for these things, you start seeing more of it everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You've mentioned a couple of people there. So, and you're alluding to things so the coaching industry, and that we could have a whole series on that. And people really taking advantage of people's vulnerabilities and promoting the fact that they need to change things for a particular reason. And then you're obviously going into something again completely different, a whole other podcast series on cults, which again, with behavior change being at the heart of those in a very specific way, because they're promoting change to you, which they're telling you is something positive. You can change this in yourself. Are you looking for a relationship? We can help you get a relationship. So all these vulnerabilities, these things that people want to change in their life. And as you alluded to, people becoming very clever at how they speak to that, and actually deliberately, which is, it just turns my blood cold, deliberately picking on those vulnerabilities in another human to get something out of them that they want.
Yeah, to get them sucked into a system that puts the cult leader or the narcissistic personality type front and center. So you end up worshipping these people, believing that they have the answers. They're the only ones that could possibly provide the answers. You hang on their every word and you don't think to question it because that because of that resonance that occurred during the sales process, you are signed up, hook, line and sinker. You are in. You are fully invested in that relationship. You've invested your money. You've put your money where your mouth is. You are there because you want to change, and you're hanging on every single word that these people output. And some of it goes really deep to the point of these people excluding you from seeing family members friends who could possibly have like an outside influence. So they've really got you into this kind of blinkered way of thinking. And we know it's very easy to lose rational thinking when you're in that state, when you've signed up to something. And this is why I'm so like, my social media use over the last couple of weeks has been getting thinner and thinner and thinner and lighter, because I'm so aware of how easy it is to be manipulated online, and how quickly I can become sidelined and blindsided and sidetracked and like just sucked into a narrative that I'm like, well, hang on a minute. And as a result of all of this, I've actually become really skeptical. Which is good. I see that as a good sign. I see that as like rational thinking.
Yeah. Say more about that. What do you mean? So how does that look for you? Are you skeptical in response to something specific, or are there certain things that you're more wary of?
Yeah, just what people are telling me. So if I'm watching a video on Instagram, for example, and somebody's preaching about the value of a particular healing modality, for example, I will just be like, what's your agenda? So I'm always now thinking, what's your agenda? What's your agenda? And, you know, obviously we all have an agenda. Like I have an agenda. I'm a rapid transformational therapist. This is how I make my money. Everything around that narrative I will believe in. But because of what I've been through, I've also extracted myself out of some of the more culty aspects of, you know, some of that world. So I always say to people, whenever they train in a specific modality, whether that's NLP or whatever, just read around, like take in so many other narratives that are different to the narrative that you've been taught, so that you get a really wide perspective of different, you know, thought paradigms, different ways of thinking, so that you're not just turning into a robot that's preaching this one thing. I just think that's so important.
As you're speaking, this really random. I feel like it's just been delivered to me by another source. But the phrase to know thyself comes to mind, and it's because as you're speaking and as we're having this conversation, bearing in mind, as we've established in the past, that lots of our conversations are riffing with the topic, aren't they?
Yeah.
And we're kind of we're meandering with wherever this takes us.
Yeah.
And what's coming up for me is just this idea and this notion that the more we truly understand who we are without influence. And for me, in terms of the work I do, I speak a lot about kind of knowing who you are from your gut. So knowing who you are from a feeling perspective, knowing your why and your purpose. And kind of the more time we spend nurturing that and knowing ourselves, the more, I don't want to say the more defenses we have to being influenced, because I think the whole point of those people is that they're highly manipulative and highly skilled at doing what they do. But the more time we spend on knowing thyself and knowing who we are and what our own values are, and spending enough time on that first before we are influenced by other people and other things, the more resilient we do become to those influences.
Yeah. I think it's about being internally referenced, isn't it, rather than externally referenced. So I listened to a podcast the other day. I think I might have mentioned it on a different podcast actually, but basically, where are you taking your sources of inspiration from? Where are you getting your ideas from? Are they all outside of yourself, or are they based on your own experiences, on your childhood, on the conversations that you've had with people and the gut feelings you get when you talk to people? Or are all of your ideas coming from what you're seeing outside of yourself? I do think, you know, obviously it's a bit of both. Some of us, we do take a certain element of external reference in.
I think
that's a good
very
thing.
hard. That's very, very hard to extrapolate, because arguably we are a product of our environment, not just our genetics and it's the whole nature nurture debate. What is, you know, what is it? Are we fully formed based on nature or nurture? And we will never. It's a bit of everything, isn't it? So to some degree, you are going to be influenced by everything you see. You just are.
Sure.
But like you mentioned the word resonance a lot, and I think, again, going back to that dark side, there are some people that, will just, they are the kind of people that are hardwired to manipulate and coerce. And going back to something that we said in that episode of Belief in the last series around, I don't know if you remember, I talked about people being driven towards kind of good or bad depending on whether, when they have money.
Yeah.
So some people will do good in the world and philanthropy and kind of do something good with what they have, and other people will choose to kind of, let that give them more power and kind of look at controlling people because of what they have. And so kind of you being able to check in terms of that ethical barometer and kind of know where you're coming from as well, and be resilient to those people that are not just manipulating, but they're actually highly coercive. And again, I think when you've done enough work on yourself, that what you were saying before about that kind of internal view, you have a better idea of not just whether something fits for you or doesn't, but whether it doesn't seem right. There's something not right about it. There's something not right about how someone is functioning or what they're trying to do, even just on a micro scale. So seeing how someone sells something. If someone's selling you something and they're doing it through highlighting, if they're shaming other people, for example, or they're saying you need to eat these foods, otherwise you'll be fat. I mean, however they're advertising something to you is a real tell as to whether it fits with your values and your ethics as well. And I think that's also something that you need to be able to check in with. Has that unlocked something for you?
Yeah. It just reminded me of that awful advert, if you can pinch more than an inch.
Oh yeah, you never get away with that now in these
No.
days, I don't think.
No, you wouldn't. And, I've just got memories of my dad, like, going for my rolls. And, like, if you can pinch more than an inch, it's like, oh yeah. There was a bit of fat shaming going on. Yeah. I mean, God, don't even want to go there. But, so, okay, here's a question for you. Have you ever been in a cult?
No, never. Never even got a whiff of it. Never even got anywhere near one. Have you?
Really? Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. You heard it first here on What the Bleep is Behaviour Change. Have you really? How do I not know this about you? What the frick?
I've teetered around the edge.
Right. So you don't have to name it, but do tell.
Okay, so there was a yoga centre in Brighton that was like an odd, it was called yoga, but it definitely wasn't yoga. It wasn't like an Indian type of Ayurvedic roots. It had Korean roots.
Okay.
And the classes were absolutely brilliant. Okay, I felt amazing.
Right.
After
they had your buy-in.
Yes, they had my buy-in. So yeah.
Great start, a great entry point, good hook, and they had your buy-in. Right. So they gave you something. They gave you a quick win.
Yes. Right. So then afterwards,
tick 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 so far.
Tick tick so far, yeah. And a real, so afterwards, after the class, you'd be invited to have tea, and you'd sit on a mat and you'd sit in a circle and you would just talk like a healing circle. Yeah.
Were you clothed?
Say again.
Were you clothed?
Oh yeah, we were clothed. Oh, that was the other cult. But yeah, definitely didn't get into that one. But anyway, so you're sitting down and you're sharing. Little did I know this was a data mining process.
Right.
So you're sitting around and then they're saying, you need to come on this workshop. So we have a workshop on this date. And there'd be like different levels of work. Oh no, you're not ready for this workshop yet. So that would pique your curiosity.
Right.
okay, and your drive to want to be better. And there'd be a lot of like wanting to make the teacher happy, this sense of wanting to gain their approval. Like, so if you came in and you did really well, or you felt really amazing, they would give you a lot of attention and sort of big you up in the little circle that you're sitting in afterwards. So of course I sign up to one of these workshops, and it's like, oh, this will take you to the next level, and I can see you are ready for the next level. So we'd have to do these exercises. It was like Korean torture. You'd have to do these exercises that were incredibly painful, and you'd have to stay in them for like 25 minutes. So this one exercise called Sleeping Tiger, where you're laying on your back, your arms are in the air, and your legs are in the air as well, like a dead bug pose. And the idea is that you hold that pose beyond the point of pain. And the longer you can hold it, like, the better you are, kind of thing. And the more resilient and strong you are.
You paid for this?
I paid for this, yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah.
All the while feeling like I found my tribe. I found my community. These people really understand me. I want to go the whole way with this. There's uniforms, there's badges, there's like, hierarchies.
Yes.
So then the next workshop was like a 2-day workshop, and I'd signed up for it. It was like £400, which was a lot of money for me back then. And it was on a really hot summer's day, and I didn't want to go because it was a hot day. I just wanted to be by the beach, but I thought, I'll go, sod it, I'll go. By the end of the day, every single part of my body was just like, no, screaming at me. This is just weird. Like, you had to wait outside before you could come in, and then you were like kind of marched in a certain order, and there was just a lot of gravity around doing things a certain way. And
it's ceremony that keeps you locked in, and it's ceremony that's part of the indoctrination.
So in like the Nexium thing, they would wear these silk scarves, wouldn't they? And each colour would represent like a different level, and there were lots of different levels. Yeah. And they had like weird words for things.
Oh God,
you know?
Yeah, it's like every alarm bell going off. Ding,
right,
ding,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I came away from there, and I thought to myself, that was weird. I don't think I'm going to go back tomorrow. But I knew that. So at the end of the ceremony or day, they would basically say, half of you will not want to come back tomorrow. We get that. But what we're saying is, so they're preempting every move.
Yeah.
What we're saying is, those of you that, or like, you need to come back. You absolutely need to come back. And they were giving like these valid reasons for that. And I just thought, and I went home and I put in the name of the yoga center, reviews, and then loads of stuff come up about it being a cult. And I thought, you know what, I'm seeing it now.
Right.
So I actually, like, I would never do this now. I just would ghost them or just walk away. But I actually phoned up and said, I'm not coming today. Put myself in the firing line, basically.
Oh, you're such a good person. That's why you did that.
I know.
Well, actually, you're not always, but yeah, I get that. Okay.
Well, I'm finding myself now. You see, back then I was a real people pleaser.
Right.
So now I'm like, actually, a lot of it is sort of sticking two fingers up at that kind of placating behaviour, because I know how. I know how detrimental it was to me for so many years. And then, of course, oh, I'm so disappointed. You've let me down. You could have been so amazing. This could have been the path. You would have found your community. Like, all the shaming, all the blaming, all the guilt tripping. And I was just like, no, I'm done. And yeah, there was a lot of unpicking that had to be done around that. But that wasn't specifically what really tuned me into cult culture. It was more like the kind of online sales, online marketing stuff that came up in the last few years, where I really wanted to like grow my business and stuff, and kind of got sucked into things. But yeah, I mean,
Wow.
it's everywhere, isn't it?
Well, also, well, first of all, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing something so personal. I think lots of people get real value from that. And it goes to show, and as I said before, no one is necessarily, safe from this, because if people tap into your vulnerabilities at the right time about the right thing, in many ways we can all be susceptible to this.
Yeah.
And it happens on a micro scale as well. It's not just cults. It's, like I said, just day-to-day advertising. If someone picks up on your vulnerabilities at the time and they speak to that. And as you said at the start, actually, there is a fine line. And we're both business owners. And so actually, when you're marketing anything to someone, in some ways you are picking up on their vulnerabilities, because you want to help someone solve their problems. And that is what that's what all businesses do, is they solve a problem. And so in your marketing and in what you speak, you have to be able to highlight the problem to someone.
Yeah.
And then highlight how you are the person to help them solve it. But this goes back to what I said right back at the start of this podcast, which is, someone like me is genuinely hardwired to want to do good in the world.
Yeah.
But how do you differentiate yourself? It can only be through time and you holding on to your ethics and word of mouth. So people seeing that you are your word, that there aren't any reviews about you online that say you're a cult, that they've got nothing to worry about. So yeah, we're all susceptible in some ways, depending on the time, where we are, how vulnerable we are. And so, yeah, thank you for being honest and speaking to that. I think maybe other people can relate, like I said, even on a micro scale as well.
Yeah, and I think it's also poignant to say here that, as Mark Vicente said, who was in Nexium, he always says, nobody joins a cult. You join a good thing. It's a good thing. It seems like a good thing at the time. And, super intelligent people were in Nexium. People, actors, musicians, dancers, creatives, all of these people that had a desire and a yearning to do better in the world.
Yeah.
And that whole sort of, they were just, well, I don't even know. They were just put through they went through a machine and spat out the other end like a shadow of their former self, their whole psyche being torn apart.
Yeah.
This stuff is real abuse. It's so bad. And I'm so passionate about like just becoming aware of this and not getting sucked in. And I think so much of the sales stuff you can learn without having to sign up to a really expensive business coach.
Yeah.
It's all out there online now. By all means, like, have a coach, but make sure that they share the same values and the same ethics. Yeah. And I think it's so important to know what you're signing up to. Like, your process has to be so explicit. And, this is where the whole conversation around consent comes in. Because a lot of the time, you sign up to things and it's like that promises, all this future faking. You're like, oh yeah, this sounds really good. But they're not actually telling you what is inside the course.
Yeah.
So having some kind of like discovery call with someone that actually you can see all the modules laid out, exactly what you're going to be going through. You can ask questions. Some people, even some coaches will even say, well, if you have to ask the question, it's not right for you. Maybe you're not ready. It's like, no, hang on a minute. I have every right to know what I'm going to be putting myself through. So, I mean, for me, I used to sign up to things like that. Like, I would never question because I was so into the law of attraction. I'd just be like, oh yeah, this is it. I feel it. Here's my money. But now, since all of this, I've developed a lot more of a questioning attitude, and I will, I'll just like, question everything. So I don't know about you, Serena, but like when people sign up with you, do you have terms? Do you like, what kind of process do you take people through
Yeah. I mean,
to
when you said that,
onboard them?
some other stuff came up for me. So I don't do any one-on-one work now. It's not my groove. I like group work and
Hmm.
teaching. So all of my work is teaching and consultancy now. And yeah, so it's mostly courses that I run, and there's just a very clear intrinsic, if you sign up to this course, you are agreeing to these terms and conditions, and they're all very clearly outlined on my website. And it's, that's very, very straightforward in terms of teaching a course, and most
Yeah.
of it's around basically not plagiarizing.
Yeah. Don't plagiarize me, basically.
Which has happened to me in the past, which we won't go into.
Mm.
Um, but when I did one-on-one coaching, very clear that people had to sign a contract, which, a contract is not just about protecting me. It's actually, but it's for both of us. It's for them. So as you said, just having really strong, intact ethics and morals in regards to how I run my business. It's very tricky with coaching, because with coaching, one of the things that is difficult is you can't guarantee any results. You can't say that something will happen. So just being clear of that, really, that, it's likely that results will happen. And what that looks like is you engaging with the work and you doing the homework and various other things. And I'll keep my side of the bargain, you keep your side. And then, so just very clear about what that looks like from both ends, both parties. And I would say for anyone looking for someone to work within that capacity, do your research, know that they're qualified to do the work that they're saying that they're qualified to do. This is a big bugbear of mine at the moment, which I don't want to go off tangent and go down that route, but I'm really triggered at the moment by everyone in this space. Everyone's a mindset expert. What the fuck is that? Everyone is. It's people starting to teach things like breath work and cold water, and talking about what supplements they're taking, and it's so random to me. You wouldn't go to a surgeon who just, maybe had some surgery on their arm through a local anaesthetic and go, I saw how they did that, now I want to start doing that surgery. And it's kind of like, that's what this whole wellness industry is breeding, is this very low level, unqualified bollocks, which is really dangerous. When it comes to you seeking help from someone in a change in your own life, make sure that they're qualified in the area that they're purport to be qualified in, that they have proper terms and conditions and ethics and standards, that maybe you can, something I nearly offer everyone I work with, actually. So I've got a course that's been launched. My behaviour change course is launching, and I get queries all the time from people who say, do you think I should do this?
Yeah.
Which makes me a bit uncomfortable sometimes, because that for me is a personal decision. I give as much information as I can up front, and then I feel like it's your decision.
Yeah.
What I don't want to do is be in a position where you feel like because I don't want to ever push sales on people. I'm like, it's there, it does what it says it does. I back that. I know my course is good, but you need to decide whether it's good for you. But what I always do is, typically when someone asks me that, is I say, would you like to speak to a previous student? So what I try and do is think of a match, someone on my course who I know maybe did the same job that they did, like a yoga instructor or another business coach, and say, I could ask them if they'd be happy to tell you what they got. I think it's just much better and much more ethical.
Yeah.
I do all the things I can, I think, in my business to assist someone in the change that they would like to make in the most ethical way possible.
I
always think that I was just going to say that the intelligence lies within you. So, I mean, my whole groove is inspiring people to be the best version of themselves. So their version of the best version of themselves is not my version.
Yeah.
So I want someone to find the brilliance in them, to be the best version of them, to be able to do the best work that they want to do. I'm not trying to convince someone to do something.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about sales and the way that I
Mm.
approach RTT. I'm like, if you found me, if you've resonated with something on my website, which is very transparent and heart
Yeah.
led, then
Yes.
yeah, it's probably for you. If you don't resonate with it, if there's, I mean, I probably wouldn't end up on a discovery call with that type of person. And interestingly, it's very, very interesting because occasionally I will get an inquiry that comes through a different website, like a directory where they haven't actually seen my website and all my ethics and values kind of laid out. And I just know it won't work because they haven't
Yeah.
really gone that deep. They haven't looked at me and got a feeling for me. They're just sort of still on that surface level, looking for some quick fix, looking to kind of something to help alleviate the pain immediately, which I understand people are in pain and they want it gone like yesterday.
Mm.
But yeah, they're not quite at that level yet. And so I just know instantly that it's not going to be a match.
Yeah, 100%. I know, in actual fact, I'm very forward in saying to people, I don't think this is the right course for you. And
Yeah,
have said that, definitely. I
it's
can
so
think of one.
liberating.
Yes, it is. And actually, on slightly off topic, but I really didn't want this person to do my course because of how they were presenting.
Yeah.
Because I've got a great course, but it's not going to give you wings and enable you to fly.
Right.
So maybe let's just stick within the realms of possibility about what a course will actually do. I think that's the other thing is, we are all working within the realms of reality. So when we're
Right.
running businesses, so you're not promising someone, they're going to win the lottery or like it's a course at the end of the day. It's a great course, but do with it what you will. Don't put all of your life in this basket of this offering. So
Yeah.
sometimes when people have those very high expectations of something, and you can see how they're presenting and what expectations they have of their own change, this course is not going to do that for you. And so it's also kind of monitoring that and having that good fit.
Yeah. And that will be
I
a
think it will be
wound.
yeah, it will. Yeah, I think probably being a bit evasive there, but I don't want to say anything that might out who I'm talking
Sure.
about.
No, I understand that. Yeah. Yeah. And I did, when I was looking into ethical entrepreneurship, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole. There's a couple of business coaches who I took a lot of inspiration from, and I went onto their website. And, these people are dealing with behavior change.
Yeah,
Um,
great.
and I thought, oh, I like that. So they've got a page of their privileges and their values. So they're
Mm.
really stating what their values are. They're stating their privileges and they're stating who they've been influenced by so that you can see the lineage.
So privileges being what exactly? I know what a privilege
Well,
is, but what do you mean in the context of this?
so I'm a white woman.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
I have slim. I exist in a slim body. I have slim privilege. I have pretty
Oh, wow.
privilege. All that stuff. I have. I was given a financial leg up. I was supported by XYZ. The only marginalisation I've ever experienced was whatever. So they're really laying out, and particularly important for business coaches, where it looks like on the surface, I've created this £1 million business and I did it all myself, and now you can learn from me.
Mm. Yeah, see, when you
Yeah.
started to describe that, I wasn't sure I liked it. Because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that could also be someone masking some narcissism around, I'm kind of owning my stuff before you can point it out. And I'm actually really great. So I'm going to say it anyway. But I do really like the idea of honouring where something comes from and who's helped you.
Yeah.
And not being, again, linking it back to obviously the core of what we're looking at, behaviour change, that I've made all of these changes because I'm amazing, and not acknowledging what's helped them make the changes, which they're then going to then feed into what they're delivering to you. So that's
Yeah.
ethical to outline that.
Yeah, it just helps you to sort of see maybe where, for example, if I've studied with someone that this potential
Mm.
client really doesn't like, or that, you know,
Yeah,
irks them, they might not decide to work with me because I might have some of that influence that might trigger them or something.
yeah, yeah. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. So, how do you, with all the knowledge that you have about this, it sounds like you've been on a journey and you've developed quite a lot of your own resilience and also, what's the word I'm looking for? Not alarm bells, but you can spot things that you don't like or get on with. So, what does that look like for you now in your life in terms of how you make decisions about who you work with?
Well, I like to work with people. So, for example, I was looking for a trauma informed certification. I'm training to be a trauma informed practitioner alongside hypnotherapy. It's something that I've been really passionate about for quite a while when the buzzwords started coming out. And I decided, having looked at some of the people on Instagram, I decided that I was going to find a practitioner, and we've spoken about this privately as well, that doesn't have, contrary to what I'm wearing at the moment, an all singing, all dancing, shiny Instagram profile. I
Oh,
wanted to work with
that's interesting.
someone who was low key, who didn't have all this kind of like strong Instagram presence, that was probably really, really good at what they did, really busy, worked very
Mm,
much in the background, and didn't need to kind of like promote themselves heavily. So I found this amazing guy online. I'll give him a shout out. It's Will Thomas Coaching. And yeah, it's a great course. There's lots of lovely, contact with the guy. And for me, that's what I look for now. Like, who's doing great work, but isn't necessarily doing a song and
mm.
dance about it.
So, what does the song and dance say to you? What does that? What are you making that mean?
Trying too hard.
Okay.
Like, it's almost like something to prove.
Hmm. Interesting. Oh, I love that. So it's for me what that says to some degree. Correct me if this is not accurate in terms of what you're saying, but where you are in your life in terms of what you value is aligned with that. How that is presenting in terms of it's almost like not a lower energy in that it's not giving, but it's not like you said front facing, spangly, all fur
Yeah,
coat and no knickers, coat.
exactly. I love
Which
it.
a lot
And
are. Which a lot are. So yeah.
I'll be totally honest with you, Serena. That's how I used to be. All fur
Um,
coat and no knickers. And that's why I can see it, because I
oh,
used
that's
to try so
interesting.
hard on Instagram. And I don't know, I mean,
Yeah.
up until quite recently, just this sort of slogging away online to try and get clients. But
Mm,
actually, what I recognized is if I consulted a proper marketing expert, there were other ways of generating clients on
mm.
really good forums, that didn't require me doing a little dance in front of a camera.
I've
Which,
never seen you do that. Now,
well, it was probably a while ago. It's probably a while ago when I was doing all that stuff, but it never really felt great. Like, it
no,
felt like that would be an alternative profile. Like, I could do that, but
mm,
for an alternative profile. It just, something about doing all that stuff and being a therapist just didn't feel right.
that's so interesting. So I'm going through a big transition. I think we've transitioned into a slightly different conversation, but yeah, I'm going through a whole transition about rethinking about how I do this as well. And I think also there's something maybe to be said for getting to a place in your life. It feels I just feel exhausted at the thought of all of that stuff. And
Yeah, me
something I
too.
did recently, for example, was that I feel links to what you're saying is there's this whole so with my course that's open with the behavior change course, a typical model for selling a course is a series of quite intense webinars leading up to a sale, leading up
Yeah.
to like a cart open and then the cart close and da 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 da, and I never really liked it. It never really was a good fit for me. But again, everyone I was watching and influenced by kind of preaches this model. And I had a go at it last year, and I did some free webinars, and I didn't like it from the minute I was setting them up, but I did it anyway because I was thinking, well, maybe that's the way that I grow my business, grow my list. You know, people can. I convinced myself that that's how I let people have a taster of my work. I kind of slipped into that way of being. I hated it, and it didn't really increase sales really massively in any way anyway.
What did you
And
hate
as
about it?
I tell you what I really hated about it is that I feel like when I do free webinars, I'm contributing to people expecting information for free. And when I do that, I belittle my work.
Yeah, completely agree.
I've worked really hard to get to where I am, and I've worked incredibly hard on my course, and my course does what it says. And there's certainly, in my mind, a real issue, certainly in the health space at the moment, which is the one I predominantly function in, where people can get so much information for free that I'm just becoming part of the white noise of free. And the more free you give, the more free is expected, or at least low level, low paid courses.
Yeah.
And my course and the things I offer, that they are my business. It's how I put a roof over my head. And I believe anything that people give that has real value should come at a price. I wouldn't expect things for free from other people. And so it didn't feel right. It felt like a mismatch for me from the start. And actually, it just triggered me even more when at the end of the free training that people came on, they wanted CPD certificates for it and everything. I was just like, no. And I knew then that I was really just buying into people's expectation of free.
Yeah, it can be soul destroying. I've done those webinars before
Yeah,
on multiple occasions. And I think the first one I ever did, I probably signed up like 3 people to my sleep course. And then the sleep course ran with 4 people. And then the second time I launched it, actually, no, the first time I launched my sleep course, I had 6 people on it. Then second time I had 4 people. And then the third
yeah,
time I had 2 people. And I was like, there's a pattern here. Something's
yeah.
not working. And I was so frustrated because there was so much good stuff inside my sleep course, but the masterclass lead, and the email system, none of it was working. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put this on hold until I work out a decent sales funnel. And I think you can do like a good automated webinar. I think an automated webinar to an automated email sequence could work. But just that feeling, like there was multiple times where I just felt that sinking feeling. I'd stayed up, I like to go to bed early, but I'd stayed up till like 7:00, 7:30 to actually run these webinars in the evening when I knew they'd be more receptive. Get to the end of like an hour and a half's presentation. I'm very clear with people at the beginning that I will be selling something at the end. So I don't want people to feel hoodwinked. This is a sales webinar. Like they know this is a sales webinar. But then just not having engagement at the end, like people dropping off, no sales. I just couldn't handle it. Like the human part of me I was just like, I cannot put myself through this. And some of the teachers were like, well, what can you learn from this? I've learned that this is not me.
Yeah, that's my takeaway point.
Yeah.
Well, what I did was this time, how that linked to my own change in my business was, so my course starts the first week of June, but I've opened the cart now, which is very against the typical model. So it just feels like a better, more honest, authentic fit for me. It's like the course is open now. What I am doing is honouring offer price for early adopters, because I think that's a fair exchange for people who get on board early.
Oh, yeah.
You've got 3 months to come into the course. I give enough free stuff away in, obviously this podcast is free, and I have a blog and a newsletter, and there's lots of other touch points. And all of my business anyway is word of mouth, typically. So that feels just like a more genuine fit for me. And again, never say never. I'm not saying I won't do another webinar, but I'll do it if it feels right and it's for the right reason. And like you said, maybe an automated. So I don't know, but right now, it's that change and a better fit. And going back to the original point, you get to a stage in your life or particular points of your evolution where you have to do things that feel like a better fit for you. The change that you're making feels more honest.
Yeah.
Obviously we're alluding to that dark side of changing people's behaviour in terms of sales. We've kind of gone into that, haven't we, in our businesses, which is inevitable because we're both entrepreneurs and business owners. And,
yeah.
So it's probably quite prominent for us in our lives that we see that a lot.
Yeah, and just coming back to dark side of behaviour change, I think it's really important perhaps to acknowledge where people are coming from. So you might be scrolling the internet and you might see that people are pushing a certain health modality or a certain paradigm or a certain way of thinking, but they will always have their own agenda. And so I think knowing what the agenda is will help us, because not every type of behaviour change is a change that we want to embark on. And sometimes it's absolutely okay to stay where we are. So and that might be something that you are honouring for yourself, that feels strongly rooted in your own value system. Yeah.
Sometimes your change will look like not doing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not engaging, because maybe that's something you used to do. So your change is to step back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're all on that journey. We're all evolving.
We are. Well, I feel like we're coming to the end of this episode. Do you have any final thoughts? Huh?
No, but we've meandered, which is interesting. I don't know what people take from that one. It feels like it's made its own little route somehow. But hopefully if you have something from that. Maybe if you've got your own business, particularly if you're listening, or you're thinking about doing something in the coaching space or the wellness space, there's some things to ponder there. If there's anything you'd like us to cover in terms of the dark side. And obviously this is the last, actually, we should say it's the last episode in this series. So
it is.
Thanks for joining us on this one. And we will obviously be gearing up for our third series again in a short while. So any ideas that you have for that or anything you'd like us to cover, please let us know. We would love to cover that for you.
Yeah, brilliant. I've really enjoyed this series, Serena, and I hope that everybody listening has a takeaway of some kind. And do reach out. I'd love to hear from you about any kind of takeaways or any insights that you've had, and any possible potential subject matters for the next one.
Definitely. Well, thanks, Sally. I'll see you in the next series. Bye, everyone.
See you later. Bye. Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Hang on a minute. My bouffe de la maison.